It might be actually going now. There it goes. All right, you guys ready? We'll edit this out later. Ready?
Yep.
Okay, let's try this again.
Recording in progress.
Welcome in to another episode of Musings on Madison here on the Second City Hockey Podcast Network. I'm your host, Dave Melton, the site manager for Second City Hockey. You can find me on Twitter at DMelt57. I think we're live on YouTube this evening, and the article's up at secondcityhockey.com, which is our website where you can find all of the stuff that we do around these parts on the internet. There's two subscription tiers at secondcityhockey.com. One is the Connor Bedard tier, the other is the Corey Crawford tier, each with its own unique perks that really help keep the lights on and keep everything going with this operation. SecondCityHockey.com is also the place where we're doing our continuing our season recaps and doing nightly game threads throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs and for tonight's draft lottery, which is the reason why we've all gathered this evening. We're a little bit short-handed, but I want to bring in both of the line mates who have assembled with this evening as the draft lottery is getting extremely close, coming up here on ESPN. So up first, she is not on Twitter, but she's at SecondCityHockey.com under the name LBR, where she is the Second City Hockey Bull and Wall of Text. It's Betsy.
Um, I'm in the middle of doing a ban sweep, like spam ban sweep of all those emails. Um, and I always find it funny that you can tell who they are in the list of like new users because their emails always look similar, but also they always use a first and last name, and real users never do. Like people who actually are active, it's always something like Todd G or like Scooby something, like they're always like weird nicknames, like obviously all of our normal ones like CCM or Rays or any of those, but I just you can always see them very easy because it's like they're trying to pretend they're real, these spam bots are real people. Um so I just go down the list. Once we get one comment, the like next 20 like with real names get blocked. The like next 20
So
people lesson to people listening, don't ever use like a real person's name because I'll ban you accidentally.
we have there's two areas where we get spam comments. Some of them are in the WordPress articles themselves, and some of them are behind the scenes, and I don't think they ever make it to public viewing. But some of
Yeah.
those comments will say such incredibly nice things about us. I wish I was as good as some of those comments. As good as some of those comments think I am. It's always like, this was such a well thought and really informative post. My cousin told me about your website. I just found it today. It's so good. It's so entertaining. Could you let me know where I could possibly find more of this content? I'm like, yeah, sure, sure, Body McBotface. We'll work on that.
Uh some of the names are kind of weird though. Gilbert Nanny. That's not a real name. You're trying though.
We appreciate your efforts.
Thanks.
Yeah. Also with us this evening, he is on Twitter at EricGEG, where he is the official Second City Hockey pizza correspondent, Eric Gagenheimer.
First of all, I don't know if anything will make me happier than the rest of the playoffs than that picture of Jason Bateman and Michael J. Fox together at the Rangers game with the actors from Teen Wolf and Teen Wolf 2 crying underneath. Just, especially, I loved both those movies when I was a kid. They were hilarious. And then if they don't get Celebrini tonight, I'm blaming Mill. It's all Mill's fault.
That's true. That's true. Significant part of the reason why we decided to do the live episode this evening is because it worked so well last year in that we ended up, the Blackhawks ended up getting Connor Bedard. So we have our fingers crossed and our toes crossed and everything else that we're hoping that something good happens tonight because, as we will get into later on when the draft lottery actually happens, if the Blackhawks do get the number one pick again tonight and they get Macklin Celebrini, there's a pretty it's a pretty substantial and pivotal night in Blackhawks history, and it's gonna make a significant effect on how much quicker, fingers crossed, this whole operation gets pointed back northward after it's been heading steadily downward for several years now. But we'll get into that a little bit later on. Before we get to all the draft lottery conversation that's coming up later on in the episode, and at some point we'll have to coordinate our whatever screens we're watching to make sure we don't ruin any reveals for anybody that's on the call here. But there was some news today, actually, related to the Blackhawks in that they signed Lucas Reichel to a 2-year contract extension worth $1.2 million annually. Was going to be a pending he was going to be a restricted free agent in the summer, but now obviously he will be under contract for 2 more seasons, and he will be a restricted free agent at the end of that deal in 2025. But Betsy, I don't know how much time you had to digest that news, but what was your reaction when you saw the Blackhawks did that this morning?
It's a good deal for both the player and the team. It's a very easily variable for like you can bury it pretty easily in the HL if they need to, like if he doesn't take off. It's short term, it's a nice little bridge. And it gives him something to build on because they do need to like I think people need to remember that 2 or 3 years ago, like and obviously he doesn't have the same draft capital, but Kurashev is the same. Like he didn't break out until this season. Even as early like as recent as last year, people were like, "Oh, he's not gonna do anything." And he was a 23-year-old then, and people were calling it over for him. And then this year he broke out. So people have some like weird revisionist histories when it comes to Kurashev. So I'm like, let Reichel have his little runway, like let him see what happens. The team around them is really shitty. Hopefully more better players will be here next year, and he'll have support and a better environment to grow, and hopefully they hit on him because they need to hit on some forwards.
Yeah,
Hit on all
absolutely.
prospects, like forwards, maybe more than any other.
Yeah, part of the reason why tonight is such a big deal is because the guy at the very, very top of the draft is a pretty damn good forward. But yeah, I don't think it seems like I think I put in the article it's like a bridge deal for both sides, and that in 2 years Reichel could be in line for a huge raise for himself if he plays better than he has so far in his career. And for the Blackhawks, they have 2 years to decide if they want to keep him around beyond 2025. So I don't think any salary that they were going to give out for 2 years was going to make or break their salary cap situation anyway. So it feels like it's overall fine. Eric, what about you? What were your reaction to the news today?
Kind of same, echoing what the two of you already said. It's the term is good. Obviously, the money's good, and they have extra money right now, anyways. But I feel like if anything, maybe they gave him a little bit extra. Especially coming off such a disappointing season. But he's going to have every opportunity, to stay up and prove it and earn some more money with his next contract. So hopefully that kind of takes, some of the pressure off him, and he doesn't have to think about it for a while, and he can just go play next year and do some of the stuff that we just saw him do for Rockford in the playoffs.
Yeah, it seems like if it's down to the AHL where he's already been a point per game player, so I don't know how much we can put in it, but he did played 4 games. It was 4 postseason games and had 4 points. So, at least I guess at least he's ending on a good note compared to everything else that happened this season.
I would say so. Absolutely. Yeah. He had 2 goals in his last game. So
Yeah.
that's it. And he's not playing in Worlds, right?
No, well, I think there was speculation that he might. I don't believe it has been confirmed one way or another. I think Kyle Davidson is supposed to meet with assembled media in Chicago whenever the draft lottery is over. So perhaps we'll get an answer about that this evening now that his Rockford time is over. Well, at least for
Okay.
this season. Hopefully next season too. Hopefully he's completely done with Rockford, but
Isn't
Yeah.
he gonna be waiver? I want to be waiver eligible going forward.
well
Was it a
that's
one-way contract?
It doesn't matter. One way just means they get paid in one, or they get
Oh,
paid
gotcha. Okay.
in the same amount regardless of which league they're in. Waiver exempt is based on games played and years from first signing. But I don't remember. Lucas Reichel. I'm gonna click his little. When are you waiver exempt? He's waiver exempt after 4 seasons or 160 games.
So he has done neither of those things yet.
No. Oh, wait, never mind. I clicked the wrong name. Why? Where did he go? Why aren't you on here? Wait, I picked the wrong little arrow
Well,
beside a name.
while you did you find the
Yeah,
information? Do you have it?
estimated required beginning. So he's got one season left in 60 or 61 games. Seasons exempt 3 or 160. So it's estimated waivers required in 2024, 2025. So yeah, he won't be waiver exempt next season.
There you go. So then the development that will keep him up at the NHL level is especially crucial next season because of that waiver exempt factor. So yeah. The other news that has happened, I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, but the Blackhawks also signed Alex Vlasic to a 2-year contract extension. I don't believe we had the chance to talk about that because we were off last week. Seems like I don't know if I would maybe awesome deal. It seemed like that is such a huge salary cap relief for a position that's extremely important for the Blackhawks, and having a reliable, steady defenseman. And as long as Vlasic doesn't take any steps back, that could go from a it already seems like a steal now, and it could only get and turn into more and more of a steal as seasons go on. So, Eric, I'll swing it over to you first this time. The Alex Vlasic news, it was, I believe, 6 years and 4 point some million dollars. What was your reaction when you saw that signing?
I mean, that's fantastic. That's a great deal. It's obviously that's life-changing money for him. He played really well this season. He deserved, to be able to get there, but they locked him up. They
Yeah.
locked him up for 6 years,
6 years,
he
4.6 million. So make sure I
there
have
you
the
go.
numbers correct here.
But yeah, I mean, it's you that could end up being if he can, and he still has room to grow. He still has room to develop to become an even better player, and
Yeah.
especially as the team gets better. So to lock that player up for that term, like that's fantastic. That gives you cost certainty. And I mean, if he develops, even if he's a really good, number two shutdown defenseman, that could end up being one of the better contracts in the entire league in a couple of years.
It reminded me of two contracts that the Blackhawks had in their prior era that really helped them do what they did. The Duncan Keith contract, where he was for like 10 or 12 years at 5.2 million, and then the Nicholas Hjalmarsson contract, which I don't remember how long it was, but I believe it was like 4.1 million dollars. Each of those, like, Duncan Keith's a future Hall of Famer. They had him at $5 million, and Hjalmarsson may not be Hall of Fame level, but he's I think becoming more and more widely regarded as one of the most underrated defensemen of that entire decade. And having those two guys at a combined cap hit of under $10 million allow them to throw so much money at other positions. And now, you have the very early similar trajectory with these Blackhawks, and having a guy who could become a lock on your blue line under contract for 6 more seasons at an extremely affordable $4.6 million. So yeah, huge deal for the Blackhawks long term thing. We don't have to worry about the cap anytime soon, but when we get to that point, it does feel like we're going to look at that contract and be like, that's a big deal for the Hawks in a positive way. Betsy, what about you?
I love it. I mean, I like even if he just stays where he is right now, like if he never gets any better, it's a good price for what he did this season. So if he gets better, that is like just amazing. I know that they locked him up. Part of how they did that is, he doesn't have a huge sample and he's not arbitration eligible. So those two factors mean that the team had a little bit more control and were able to negotiate, I think, a better deal than maybe if it was one more season out. So the people who were like a little like salty about the Blackhawks burning years on Nazar or anybody else they might do, know that is a legitimate tactic that worked out well in the case of Vlasic, because again, that's how they base their contracts, on how well they do in a large enough sample. His sample is not large enough to get more than what he got, really. And that works out extremely well for them, for the team especially. And it's a smart play. So I don't think anybody should be worried about burning contracts. This is a perfect example of how it works out.
Yeah.
Well, and taking that a little bit further too, I'd say that sets a good precedent for the younger players, where it's showing like if you come in and you contribute and you do well,
Mm-hmm.
they will step up and they'll take care of you and they'll give you some money and some term. So it's a good kind of level set to start off with, for this next wave of younger players that are supposed to be coming up.
It just seems like good business ultimately. Like I
Yeah,
think that's the
yeah, all
general
around.
idea. So, uh, yeah, really encouraged by that. And I don't have much else to add than you two have already said. Like there's a lot going on. There's a lot of just I shouldn't say there's a lot going on. There's some good signs so far at the very base level of what the Blackhawks are building, and hopefully it continues in that direction. There's much steeper mountains to climb ahead in so many different ways, but at least at least we got a few good things to point to, saying that this is these are some positive steps that are being taken. And Betsy just put this in our Slack, so it looks like Lucas Reichel is going to Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
That is, I'm not even gonna pretend to know how to pronounce that name, but it is a tweet that came out uh, on Twitter from Germany. So let's uh, let's go with that. The one other thing we wanted to talk about, as the draft lottery is just slowly about to get going, it appears. They just came back from a commercial break, so I think they still got some more dragging it out to do, and obviously we're gonna wait a while before the Hawks get announced. Is this thing that I want to preface all of this with? This is not the report of a rumor. This was not talked about anywhere. It was merely spitballing, and it was his word, by Elliot Freeman. But when Elliot Freeman does spitballing, it's much different than if just some random person on the internet does it. And his thought was related to the situation in Toronto. They just got eliminated from the playoffs, and it seems like they might want to do something to change things up with how things have gone with that group that they have out there. And one connection that he drew was possibly trading away Mitch Marner to the Chicago Blackhawks and have Seth Jones be the player that goes back to Toronto because they need help on the blue line. And we talked about this a little bit already at Second City Hockey headquarters, so I know what Eric's reaction is going to be, but the rest of you do not, so I want you all to hear it. So Eric, what was your reaction when you heard that news?
I believe it was all caps. Oh my God, please trade Seth Jones for Mitch Marner.
Yes.
And that's essentially how I feel. I mean, Toronto is such a weird market, but they need defensive help. I can't. There's not too many scenarios where any other team could take on that contract. So it would have to be you're moving similar money, and lots of times either those players don't get traded, or the other contract would be so bad, like somebody like a Huberdeau, that you would not even want to take that back. Seth Jones is still a useful player. I just don't think he's necessarily worth what he got paid, but he got paid, so good for him.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, if especially on a team that's forward deficient and has a ton of defensive prospects in the pipeline, like if you can get a top 20, top 25 forward in the entire league, and maybe even higher, depending on your opinion of Marner, you do that like absolutely all day.
I I want to come back to the thing you said about Marner in a second here, but I want to get Betsy's thoughts on it first.
I mean, it's like I have mixed feelings. Because I would love for them to be able to get out from under Seth Jones's contract, because I think by the time the Blackhawks are legitimate, he's not gonna be legit, like he'll be up there in age, but who knows? And then Marner, people are like, well, he's a no-show in the playoffs. I don't think he's a no-show, but the things that Blackhawks fans find frustrating about skilled players, the finesse players, they will absolutely find ridiculously frustrating about Marner when like the whole like, well, he's soft or he doesn't back check and blah blah blah. The things that Patrick Kane always did, but it didn't matter because Patrick Kane was Patrick Kane and on a winning team that could support him if he was like, oh, I'm not going to go full throttle right here because in a second I'm going to cherry pick and score a goal, right? These Toronto Maple Leafs are not the Blackhawks from 2010 to 2015, obviously. So, but at the same time, Bedard needs forwards and the Blackhawks need forwards. They have way more defensemen than they know what to deal with. It's just that they're not fully realized. We're really excited about Vlasic, but we got to remember he's currently the only one that's proven out of all the prospects to be able to at least play in the NHL at a decent level. Kevin Korchinski has not proven that. He was fine in his third pairing-ish role, but he has not proven that he can play above that yet. He has all the skills to do it, but it's not there yet. And we've got a lot that we really, really like in the AHL. We like Kaiser, we like Domastro, we like Allen, you know, but none of them have proven a single thing yet. Yeah. So it's like you're depleting an area that, like, the Blackhawks need all of it. Yeah. They need everything.
But you could be could be pulling from an area of perceived strength to boost an area of perceived weakness.
Yeah. So and I really like Marner. Like, I know that people, like I said, people rag on him, but I think his skill is undeniable. And he's the type of playmaker that I think would boost Bedard into the stratosphere. You know, like just keep feeding him. Just, is it too early for a Marner at his age? That's the question. Yeah. It's like, yeah. So mixed feelings, but if it happens, I'll be like, that's cool. If it doesn't, I'll be like, that's fine too.
See, and this was the first season that I, like, for the last few years, like, that was the running joke I had with some people that when Toronto blew it up, Mitch Marner's the guy I wanted because, like, Austin Matthews, like, I mean, I think Matthews might be the clear-cut best player out of the core four, as they call it, but I felt like he was never leaving town, so it was like between Marner and Nylander and someone else, and name's escaping me. But anyway, Marner always seemed like the guy I wanted because he also, like, is not a totally useless piece on defense, or like Kane was such a one-way player. Marner, I believe, is one of the top penalty killers for the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, he's actually very good. It's only during 5-on-5 play that people get, like, the perfect example is the last goal against.
I was just about to bring that up. He just watched Pastas fly right by him and didn't do anything to get in his way.
Marner's not the fastest. People think he's fast, but he's not the fastest player. And on top of that, he'd been on the ice for a second and had only taken one shift off. So there's context to that gliding, but, like, that happens enough that people are like, well, what about that? And you're like, maybe he's expending so much energy in defensive situations sometimes, you know, like, I don't know. I think lots of people have some skewed view on him. So like I said, I really, really like him as a player, but I know for a fact that there are going to be a certain segment of Blackhawks fans that will see those plays, those outlier plays like that, and go, oh,
well, and the other side of that is, I feel like the Blackhawks front office has talked so much about character and grit and guys who try hard and all this stuff. I wonder if they would even be interested in that. So
I'm going to say too, I don't think Sheldon Keefe is a very good coach in any stretch of the imagination. And I think that team tuned him out a long time ago. I don't know why they can't realize that up here. So, you know, a different team, a different coach, a different market even too, you know, and that could make a difference. So, you know, I think some of that stuff may not translate the same. You know, we could get really deep into that if that ends up being a scenario, you know, that we need to concern ourselves with. But I think he's part of it is that market. It's the same thing, you know, with the Yankees or with the Cowboys or whatever, you know, when you are kind of the team in the sport that everyone pays attention to, people are just going to nitpick stuff to death. And he's a really, really talented forward. He would be immediately the second best forward on the team. So, you know, if you can get that player, if you feel like that's worth that for Seth Jones, then, you know, go get that player.
Oh, Jesus Christ, we're doing another commercial break. Or no, all right, maybe not. I've got Bettman and Buccigross on my screen, so maybe they're finally gonna start revealing the actual pics of it.
No, they're like doing like a mine. They're showing the globe thingy.
Yeah, the sphere in Vegas. Yeah.
Sphere, yeah. And now
they're talking. They come back to them. Yeah. So I think I'm slightly ahead of Betsy.
Okay, but yeah, well, they're going through all the
The
explanation of
rules,
everything. Like
yeah.
we didn't have, like everyone didn't have a month to read up on this. I think we know how this works, but
To be
whatever.
fair, the casual people do not.
True.
Uh, like the people who are flipping through channels and just got here, because I'm trying to think of who knows these rules.
And
We do.
I guess the other thing. Oh, all right, Bill Daly's on the screen. Just came on my screen, so I might. Sounds
Same.
like
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
same.
okay. So it sounds like we're getting to it. Oh, he's holding up a number 16, so they're actually getting started here. But
Okay.
I believe it's I believe it's the Hawks are now at number 20. That's the other pick that they are locked into because of
Yep.
Tampa Bay exiting in the first round. So the Hawks will pick. We'll find out where they pick at the other draft that they have, but they are also locked in at number 20 for this year's draft with their second first round pick. And so far, I've got St. Louis and Detroit have
If they
not
don't
moved up.
win, yeah, if they don't win first, I hope that they find that they look into like a Pasternak at 20, because he went late. There's always like one that goes between 20 and 30 that ends up being like a steal, like the steal of the draft. And I hope it's the Blackhawks so people can rage about that instead. Like I want people to rage one way or the other.
Oh, that's I'm here for chaos because that would be the most fun part of the Blackhawks winning the draft lottery this year is how everyone's going to be so furious about it, but also the Edmonton Oilers won 4 in a row, so I don't have like 2 in a row is nothing compared to what Edmonton did.
I know.
I'm going back through recent number 20 picks.
I just
Nowhere near Pasta, but 20 and 21 it was Jesper Wallstedt, who I think uh, we all thought the Hawks were going to get him that year, but that was the year they made the trade for Seth Jones, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
Seth Jones. Yeah.
It was going to be
Yeah.
him or Sebastian Casa, I think was the other goalie that they were talking about getting in the first round.
Yeah, Casa just beat the Ice Hogs.
I mean the Ice Hawks beat themselves, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean the Griffins were fine. Like not to not say that, but like the Hogs were a pretty good shot suppression team towards the end of the year, especially. And all of a sudden they're allowing like almost 40 before they even get to in at least two of the games. Game 1, which Dauber was in net, and then game 3, which Comesso was in net, and you're just like, why? Why, children? Why are you doing that suddenly? The thing that made them so good at the end of the year was how stop acting like Vanna White, man. Just walking across the street.
no, they got to drag the shit out. They got some more ads to sell.
Like you'll never be Vanna White, Yushi.
I'm already up there. Daly just held up number 9 on my screen, so we're flying through this at a decent pace. And
I'm
again,
a couple seconds behind you then, Dave.
okay. Well, then I will definitely not react. I imagine they'll get up to number 3, or they'll reveal number 4, and then go to commercial, and then come back and reveal the top 3. Because I believe
Unless
that's
somebody
what they did
jumps,
last year.
.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out. We'll find out if one of the teams jump here pretty soon.
Yeah.
And
No jump for Seattle.
yeah, I'm the one who has to be quiet here because I'm the one. I think my stream is slightly ahead of both of yours.
Good old cable TV Dave.
Oh no, I'm actually well. I have cable, but I'm watching this on a tablet, so I'm still watching via streaming service.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I feel like I'm the only person left with cable, but
we have cable here.
oh, okay.
Utah.
It's very strange to see Utah on a hockey thing. Like I'm still not used to Seattle, just because they're a new team. And yeah.
Wait till Atlanta's back. I wonder
No.
if they'll be the Thrashers again or if they'll go with a new.
Oh, when Winnipeg goes back there, when they give up on that experiment, because I feel like there was.
No. They're gonna get a new team.
Oh, okay.
There's a whole. They want to be. Atlanta wants an expansion team. They do not want a relocation.
And that's where it seemed like there was talk during the season some point about Winnipeg, like they had a very good regular season, but they weren't filling up the stadium, and then the team got bounced early in the playoffs again. And I feel like what incentive are you going to have to get fans to come back during the regular season? Yeah.
on top of that, so the Thrashers, other than their last 2 years where they were obviously tanking to do whatever they're gonna do, technically had more people in the stadium because the stadium down there is bigger than Winnipeg's by a decent margin. So at like 80%, the arena down here is about the same capacity as the one in Winnipeg. So
There's a big article about that, today, just at the Athletic.
the new arena won't be as big as I don't think. It's also not near the city, but whatever.
All right, well, we're top 3 taking a break.
Okay, yeah. Here comes a commercial break. It's been completely chalk so far. I don't think any team has jumped up, so the top 3 will be San Jose, Chicago, and Anaheim in some order. And I don't know what. Are we gonna light some sage? Do we have to light some candles? Like I don't know how we make this work, but
Pray to your Kyle from Chicago memes.
yeah, cue them all up in case. I think like I think I mentioned this earlier, and it's become how I watch sports. Almost, obviously I want my teams to win, but outside of that, the thing I think I watch sports for now is just chaos, and I cheer for what's going to create the most chaos. And here I'm fortunate to be in a situation where the thing that would benefit my team the most would cause the most chaos. So it would be really fun if the Blackhawks won this draft lottery.
I forgot we were live, and somebody just was like Anonymous was laughing at me saying Vanna White, and I was like, oh.
Hi, Anonymous. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it.
I know. Very much so.
Yeah. So, I don't know, it's funny that they have Macklin Celebrini on the screen. I guess I don't know if it was, I think it was just some speculation from certain parts of the internet that maybe he won't go to the NHL. I think I think his presence on the draft lottery special pretty much is him unofficially announcing that he's not going back to Boston next year. So Blackhawks prospect Ryan Green will get possibly a more expanded role. But go ahead.
I don't know about that because they've had the first overall pick every year on the draft, and that included like Shane Wright, who went back. Shane Wright, they went back to school.
Well, but
didn't they sent Shane Wright back though? Seattle did.
He was down
right.
You can't. No, he went to school, didn't he? Who was the last number 1?
No, they put him in juniors. It was like a whole thing because he couldn't go to the AHL.
Okay, sorry, I was
back to juniors.
I was gonna be like, no, they can't do that. So never mind.
Owen Power went back.
Okay, then yeah, I was like, there's somebody that went back to school after being on there.
Yeah, I mean he said like it depends on the scenario. And,
it depends on the
Mm.
team. He's like, he's not going to go back if it's the Sharks that get him.
That's true. That's true.
Can I go join the Sharks team right away? But if it's Chicago, probably
that was the joke. Yeah, that was the Fantilli joke we made last year. He's going to go to med school.
Okay.
If he ends up.
yeah. So
the Sharks.
All right, so they're back from commercial, and Bill Daly's on my screen.
I think he'd go if he gets to Anaheim too, because Anaheim's awesome. That'd be cool.
I mean, they do have an interesting young core that they're building out there.
Oh.
So this is where all right, they're down to See, and I remember last year, I think Eric was the last one, so the other 3 of us had to go quiet.
I know, like this is the reverse.
Okay, this is where I'm going quiet because there's a number 1 on my screen, so we're just gonna wait, and Eric, you're gonna react.
I'm reacting again?
Yeah.
Oh, so exactly as planned. Celebrini does not look too stoked.
Yeah, so Celebrini is going to go back to college now.
ESPN is showing San Jose, but they say Anaheim underneath. So get your act together, ESPN.
Yeah, they just showed like Anaheim was partying. Like
it was San Jose.
It's actually San Jose though.
Okay, okay. I just want to make sure there weren't people in Anaheim celebrating, thinking that they'd got the number 1 overall pick. So
no, it was San Jose jerseys. I wonder when the last time was that it went exactly as it was supposed to. I feel like it's been quite some time.
Yeah, that's extremely chalky. So it was obviously rigged, right? rigged against the Hawks.
Totally.
Sucks a little bit just because I mean obviously we want to go first, but oh, and Eric Montreal got first. They were the last place team.
The last place team to finish first in the draft lottery.
I know that they did because people were very they were like, did they take the right guy? And all that kind of stuff. Like it was a little bit.
Oh, Slavkovsky.
Yeah, that was 2022. So it hasn't been that long. So.
Well, I mean, even nobody jumped. Like the order across the board is exactly as it should be.
Oh, yeah. Because the Devils jumped that year to 2.
Yeah, I feel like, and I don't know where, but I feel like in one of the lottery articles I've read the last couple of days, there was some stat about like how rare it is for it to play out exactly as it's supposed to play out. And I feel like they referenced it hasn't happened in 20 years or something, but I could be totally wrong.
So
okay, so Taylor Hall did not work his fucking magic here. Okay, like where was that good luck that he brought to every other team?
Oh wait, was that a thing? Am I not aware of this?
Yeah, Taylor Hall's like the ultimate.
The Devils won it, and then the Oilers won it a bunch after him too.
Yeah. Hold on, I can tell you right away because somebody Laz just wrote an article about it. But Taylor Hall, 2010, they win the lottery, move up and pick Hall. Then the Devils in 2011 win, but only move up to 4. So the Oilers Halls get the first over pick. Hall is still with the Oilers. They get the first pick in 2012. Still with the Oilers. They get it in 2015. 2016, Hall was traded to the Devils. The New Jersey won. That's the player that New Jersey took in 2011 when they won. Then 2017, the Devils win the lottery. 2019, the Devils win the lottery. 2021, the Sabres win the lottery. And then although injured, this year it didn't work for him. So his magic did not win the lottery for the Blackhawks. It would have been hilarious if it had. That would have been absolutely the best.
Yeah, I guess the internet chaos will subside tonight. It's going to be so much more boring on Twitter this evening because the Blackhawks didn't win this time around, I guess. But congrats to all the San Jose Sharks fans. I'm sure you're all ecstatic this evening.
All 4 of you left.
Yeah, I was.
He's going back to college now. We know.
Yeah, that's.
PhD Macklin Celebrini.
I mean, it's not like the Sharks have a good pool. There's nobody there right now that anybody cares about, really.
No, listen, Celebrini and Will Smith in a couple of years, like that's not going to be a lot of fun. But
yeah, that's gonna be a nice 1-2 punch. Fucking love Will, but yeah. Currently speaking, there's no reason for him. There's no reason for the Sharks to want him to come anyway either. They're gonna want to tank again next year.
Well, yeah, and the thing too was that Cole Yzerman is his boy, and he's supposed to be going to BC next year. So that was like the 50-50 was he might want to stay and play with Yzerman for a season before he went to the NHL. So maybe that's more of a reality, now that it's San Jose. But
yeah, I think if it had been Chicago, he would have just come because that's, it's Bedard and he'd want to be a part of. And I don't know if the rookie class this upcoming year is going to be anything like super impressive. So like he probably would have won the Calder.
Yeah.
On a line
with. While you're there, Betsy, I guess is what we could talk about now is what the Blackhawks do with this number 2 pick. And as we were talking about earlier, like the Blackhawks don't have a ton of top line forwards in the system, which is why that whole Mitch Marner thing was so enticing, because they could add another one with a trade there. But I like my thought, and we might have talked about this on a podcast episode in the last month or two, that like my flow chart for the Blackhawks in terms of decision making for this year's draft was you start with, if you get the number 1 pick, you're obviously taking Macklin Celebrini. And then if you don't get Macklin Celebrini, ideally, you trade that number 2 pick and you find yourself a top of the a top line forward prospect that is either at or just about NHL ready. Now I say that while also acknowledging that it is insanely unrealistic to expect any NHL GM to trade a number 2 overall pick, because that's just something they don't do. So it's almost not even worth talking about any further, because NHL GMs just don't get all tradey with their draft picks like they do in some other leagues, the NFL in particular. So with this number 2 pick, Betsy, I guess who are some of the names we're looking at here?
I mean, you've got Demidov, however you say his name, Russian
Demidov?
kid. Yeah, I actually think that it's pronounced. Like, I wish I could. I need to watch more tape on him because the way that announcers pronounce it in English in Russia is different. Um, but either way, he's awesome. He's, I think, easily the next skilled player in the draft, and it's like if he wasn't Russian and signed for another year, I think there would be no doubts that he'd be number 2.
pronouncenames.com.
But because he is Russian and signed, also he's a little bit he's not small by any, like he's light. He's 5'11", but he's not a $170 yet, but he is only, like, I think he turned 18 in December. So he is a little bit Patrick Kane at draft size, but maybe a little bit taller. Then you have if you aren't sticking with forwards, I guess the next guy after that is Lindstrom. And then it's Yzerman, but those two are it just depends on what you want, because Yzerman, I think, is probably the more skilled guy. He can shoot from anywhere. He's an automatic scorer. Very, very, very good release. Really shifty, but he dropped a lot in people's rankings because of like some inconsistencies elsewhere in his game. While you have Lindstrom, who is big and plays like, somebody compared him to Rantanen. And I was like, oh yeah, if you could get a Rantanen to Connor Bedard's McKinnon, like that's not a bad pickup, right? He just doesn't, I don't know if he's ever going to top out at the same skill level Rantanen is, but Rantanen was picked number 10 that year because his skills weren't fully developed by then. Lindstrom is about like in a similar path. There's obviously a ton of potential. The tools are there, but they're not realized yet. And then there's the defenseman, which it's Levchinov, is obviously the number 1. He's awesome, I think.
He seems to have emerged as the clear cut, well, maybe not clear cut, but he seems to be the closest thing to a consensus number 2, I guess I would say.
Yeah, I think it's because of the Russia thing, because I think he would be the consensus if it wasn't. And then after that, it's really that it's a lot of, like, there's a couple of defensemen that are better than most of the forwards. It's him. I think Dickinson probably is up there. And then there's what's his name? Sylvia? Yeah.
Siliev.
Siliev. Who's also Russian, but I don't think signed. I think he'll stay in the KHL for a little bit longer, but I think that's the next of those guys. There's also there's like 2 or 3 other defensemen in the top 10 that kind of like jump around. And then I'm trying to think of, there's what's his face who's with the Chiefs in the WHL. Caton? Caton? Catton. Berkeley. It's his first name.
Berkeley Catton. Yeah.
Yeah, he's really good too. I think people will really be excited about him, but again, another smaller forward. I think a lot of the forwards that are at the top are kind of small except for Lindstrom.
Yeah, I don't know, like, I've always maintained that with the NHL draft, because unless you're picking like in the top 5 or 10, it seems for the most part these guys do not immediately come up to the NHL, and sometimes are multiple seasons away from coming up to the NHL. So the idea of drafting for need at the NHL level seems incorrect to me. It seems like the philosophy should always be pick the best player available wherever you are picking, regardless of position. And if you end up with too many defensemen, you trade those defensemen, you trade some of those prospects to get the forwards you need, and vice versa. So we've talked about this and been talking about it for years that the Hawks don't have a ton of forwards in the system. But I also feel like if the best player who's available at number 2 is Levshunov from Michigan State, who's a defenseman, I have a hard time picking. I have a hard time thinking they should do anything but take him, because if you end up with too many good defensemen, that's not necessarily a fatal flaw. You could take some of those defensemen and then get you the forwards you need to round out the rest of your roster. What do you
That's literally what we were just talking about,
Yeah.
was trading a defenseman, to get a top end forward.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's absolutely, you can do that too.
Yeah.
So neat little bit of trivia that just went across the Twitter feed though. So they do the drawings. They do 3 in a row for the or they do 2 in a row for the first 2 picks, but they don't take the numbers. They put all the numbers back in. San Jose actually won every one of them, all 3 of them. So for 1 and 2 multiple times, and the Blackhawks, they had to redraw again for a second time before they got a different set of numbers. So the San Jose Sharks, the fate was with them the whole time. The odds were always in their
the odds were always in their favor.
According to this is the first time in the NHL draft history that they've ever had to do 1 redraw, much less 2. So yeah, the Sharks were very much the like the hockey gods were smiling upon them. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say. Like, this is definitely significantly more or significantly less exciting than what happened around this time last year when the Blackhawks got Bedard, and it was obvious that a whole different type of thing was happening in Chicago. This is just more of like, all right, cool. We knew they were going to be picking pretty high, and they still are, just not quite as high as we had all hoped that they were going to pick. Eric, did you have any other thoughts about Levshunov? Because I know I can't remember if you were the one who wrote the article about him or me, but because that seems to be the way that everyone's going to be leaning for the next couple of months ahead of the draft.
Well, I mean, he profiles as like a legit number 1 defenseman, like can do everything, can play all areas of the ice, can score a lot. I think his defense is lagging more than his offense right now, so that's probably what he'll work on. I'm assuming he's going back to Michigan State. No matter where he ends up, he'll be back for at least another year. So that's what he'll be working on. But he's like he's kind of got a little bit of a mean streak to him too. He plays tough, he plays hard, which is good. And that's the type of thing I think that you want in like a bigger, tougher defenseman. And he's supposed to be like super, super strong. He does all these crazy strength training things, and he breaks all these records for the hockey team at Michigan State. So, that's a player that if he ends up going to the Blackhawks at 2, for all the defensemen that they have, in their system, they don't have a player like that in their system. So, I mean, that's someone that you could immediately say, like, okay, whenever he's up, like maybe him and Vlasic, maybe that's your number 1 pairing, for the next 5-10 years. So,
Yeah,
and they would complement each other well too, I think, with their skill sets. So, I mean, to me, it's if they the best player available to me is, like Betsy was saying too, it's either Demidov or it's Levshunov. There's a part of me that maybe it's Kirby Doc Whiplash still is worried they're going to take Lindstrom because he seems like he's kind of like the safest bet. But no, I really like Levshunov. I think I would put him a little bit ahead of Demidov, despite the fact that, they have a lot of defense in the system already. But that's just how much I like that player.
Betsy, you were going to say something, it sounded like?
Oh, I was just gonna say that because Eric was pointing on like he'll come in here and he'll be good. I think he would be easily the best defensive prospect that they've had in years. In terms of like obviously Vlasic is shooting above his draft shot, but he's better than Korchinski was his draft year. He's better than Boquist was. He's better than any of the guys that they've picked in recent years, by a definitive margin, I think. same type of player almost, because way a little bit more offensive than defensive, but bigger, stronger, like Eric pointed out. But yeah, he's the only one of them that has like Korchinski could be a top pairing defenseman. You got, like he's like teetering up there, but like his floor is more 2 or 3. You're hoping he gets to 1 and he's great. Levchinov he's projected as a top pairing with, like fallback as a second. So a little bit higher draft
And
capital.
and
And
he
Levchinov too. He was the youngest player in college hockey this year, I believe. Like
Yeah,
he
yeah,
is, he's
young.
still a baby.
even younger than Celebrini, because Celebrini's still 17 years old.
Oh yeah, well no, he's 18. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, the other thing about Levchinov, and I apologize, Eric, if did you mention he's right-handed? That is something like the Blackhawks have 86,000
Yes.
left-handed, which
The lefties, yeah.
the majority of NHL players are left-handed, and I think I remember there was some sort. It is like the way hockey is taught in Canada, and the majority of hockey players are Canadian, and the way it is taught, they end up being left-handed players. But he is a righty, and so just that alone makes him a bit of a unique archetype that the Blackhawks don't have, and a lot of teams in the league don't have. So that would be nice as well, I suppose.
Yeah, and I don't think any of the other, because like I know Dickinson shoots left. So like if they end up having to pick everybody else
Yes.
picked left.
So
So
yeah,
he's
there's
the only
left
he's
too,
the only
yeah.
he's the only righty towards the top. So I think he's gonna go pretty quick. I don't know if the Blackhawks will get him, but I think he'll be top 3 or 4. There's always, every year that there is a defense heavy draft, there's always a bunch of people who still pick forwards, even though they're not the best. The year that Quinn Hughes and Boquist were drafted, that was like this. It's not that dissimilar of a draft in the sense that there were a lot of defensemen that are in the top like 10 or 15, and then they, for some reason, didn't start picking, and like Quinn Hughes wasn't picked until 8, despite being the best defenseman in that class.
I was just searching for and found Scott Wheeler at The Athletic. His his most recent draft prospect rankings. Number 1 is obviously Celebrini. Number 2 is Demidov, and number 3 is Levchinov. So
yeah.
So there you go. That's where things kind of shake out at the moment. And number 4 is Zeev Bume. I have no idea. I saw him play because he was out at Denver and they won the national title. And I don't know if we'll have to learn how to say his name. I'm not even going to attempt to say it right now.
He jumped so high after Worlds.
Yeah, at one point I remember hearing about him as like for the Tampa pick, he 19-20 range. So yeah, for him to be up that high, like that's pretty impressive. That's a good run.
He's another one of those kids that like after Worlds, he just was tearing it up. Like that whole USA Worlds team came back and was like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna ride this. And yeah, a lot of them moved up as a result. So there's just a ton of defensemen at the top of this thing. Where does he have Lindstrom? Because Wheeler always likes big dudes, so I'm surprised.
11.
Oh, interesting.
So
lots of people have him higher, again, mostly because he's really big already. There's so many of the top kids in this draft that are forwards are like not very, like, it's not that they're small, it's that they're not like Lindstrom is already like 215 or something.
6'3", 210 according to this ranking here. So there you
go. No, he's definitely bigger. Like, I mean, the WHL has him bigger than that. But same thing with Levchinov. He's already like 210.
Yeah.
Like those are physically mature children.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think.
I mean, think about Vlasic was really tall, but under 200. He was like 190 something when he was drafted. Just didn't fit his frame. So you got to think about like these kids already like big.
All right.
Big babies.
So I think we'll have plenty of time to dive into more of the prospect discussion over the next month and a half or so until the NHL draft, sometime later on in June. But we got a few other things to get to before we get out of here. And up first, Eric, I believe you said you had some sort of Blackhawks related trivia question or something for us that you wanted to get out.
Oh yeah, I came across this one the other day, and I spent way too long thinking about it, and I could not figure it out, and I finally had to look up the answer. I don't know, but one of you might know this and get this right away. But
That'd be
only
rather
one.
anticlimactic if that was
It
the
would
case,
be
but
anticlimactic. I have a feeling like Betsy might just be like, "Oh yeah, it's this person." Only one Quinville era Blackhawks Cup winner has won the cup with another team after leaving the Blackhawks. Do you have any idea who it is?
ooh,
Um, no,
Troy Brower.
No, that's not a bad one though.
So I thought he was on the St. Louis team we'll never mention.
no, he was
He was
before
gone
that.
by then. I thought it was TVR for a second. I'm like, I think he was on that Capitals team that did it, but that's not the case.
Michael Kempney?
Wasn't he with the Blackhawks team? Or wasn't he with that
Well,
Caps team?
Kempney didn't win a cup though in Chicago. He was a part of the Quinville era though, because Quinville never played him.
Who?
Yeah, the Quinville Blackhawks Cup winners though.
Okay. So it wasn't Kempney.
No, it wasn't Kempney.
Ooh, this is all right. Well, we definitely didn't get it right away.
Yeah, and it wasn't Rudda because he wasn't with the Cup team either.
Nope.
Yeah, I don't know this.
Did I was gonna say Antti Ranta, but I don't think he went anywhere that was good enough to win a cup.
No, he went to New York and then he's been in Carolina ever since. So
Can you tell us which
no,
team, which of the rosters?
10.
Oh, so that makes way more sense. Because all of those guys, there were so many less. Um,
Versteeg?
Nope. That's a good one.
Um,
Especially he's been on 42 teams.
Yeah.
or whatever.
That's
So, yeah.
that was part of the reason for that guess.
It's a hard one, and it's not because just the player's hard enough on their own, but then even like
Colin
it's not
Fraser.
like they.
Oh,
There you go.
yeah, he
Dave
went to
just won.
LA.
Yes.
Yeah.
One-time Second City Hockey podcast guest, Colin Fraser, actually.
I forgot
Really?
he was
Yeah.
on those LA teams.
Yeah, it was like he was part of some company that they were going around advertising and going on podcasts and talking about. And I got him to tell a story that got hinted somewhere that after the 2010 Cup and during all the celebration, one of Colin Fraser's buddies, I don't remember if it was accidentally or intentionally, but he left the stadium that night with Patrick Kane's hockey helmet, and nobody could find it until like 2 or 3 days later. One of Fraser's buddies was like, "Oh, I got it. I'll send it back to him."
Oh, like he took the Game 6 helmet?
Yeah. The helmet Kane was wearing when he scored the game-winning goal.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's somewhere in the Second City Hockey podcast archives. That's in there somewhere. All right. Well, I think that's it for the hockey discussion. Excellent. Yeah, that was definitely not a name we were going to get to first in the list of trivia questions. So, any other?
No, I forgot he existed until you said his name just now. And then I was like, oh yeah, he was absolutely on those LA teams.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going through like bottom six forwards and like bottom pairing defensemen, and was like, that's somehow landed on that one. All right, well then, before we get out of here, we do have to reclaim our mantle as the best food-themed hockey podcast on the internet. And I don't really have, it's not necessarily a food take, it's more about a food thing and kind of a story experiencing that happened to be recently. So, and this might kind of touch in our Ask a Southerner segment that frequently pops up in this section of our podcast, but are either one of you familiar with morel mushrooms?
Yes.
Okay, so do you know that this is a thing that people go hunting for and like it's like there's videos online, like tutorials of where to go, where to find them, and how to look for them.
No,
Okay,
I was not aware of that.
Betsy,
There
are
was
you aware of this at
I
all?
I was gonna. There's a Bob's Burgers episode about
Okay.
not these they're not called this and that. They obviously renamed it, but it's the same like premise of like they go hunting and stuff like that for it.
Okay, because I was out and was walking around in parts of Indiana. I don't even want to reveal where we found these things because it's apparently it's a big deal if you find like one or two or maybe like a small handful. Came across like 5 to 10 pounds worth of these things, and in the middle of this park we were walking around in, and I don't know if you've had, any of you had the experience of just like finding food in the open and then cooking it up and eating it yourself. And apparently I found an article from I believe it was the Indy Star newspaper that said that these things retail for like 50 or $60 a pound at
Yeah.
some parts. Like they're a huge, very not quite, I won't call them gourmet food, but they're definitely a rare, maybe delicacy is not the right word, but they can be a thing if you find them. And apparently, I just accidentally stumbled across 5 to 10 pounds of them while walking around, cooked them up, ate a whole bunch of them. They're incredibly good. I understand why people go looking for them, but I had no idea that this was in the thing, so I had no context for it. When my reaction was, "Oh, look, they're over there," uh, when I should have been substantially more excited about what I uncovered. It's like finding gold and not realizing you're looking at gold.
Did you eat all the gold?
Oh, I wish we gave away at least half of them because there was far too much to eat or cook up, and it's a lot of effort. You gotta cut them up and cut them up and wash them several times. Make sure no bugs have crawled up inside of them because you're pulling them out of nature. So they were very tasty, incredibly good to
They
eat.
look like sponges, right?
Yes,
Yeah. They look like loofahs in the wild.
yes, exactly.
I mean, loofahs are already in the wild, but like loofahs not in the sea. Yeah, there's a Bob's. That's the only reason I know about it is because it's a Bob's Burgers. Because down in like I assume they probably do it in the South, but I feel like truffle hunting is more popular down here.
That's a very good comparison for it. I think it's in this same idea as that or
Do
similar
you
idea.
do you use pigs to hunt for these? Because you can use pigs to truffle hunt.
Fresh out of pigs to go hunting morel mushrooms with, but I guess I could look into it.
Yeah, truffle
I'm not
hogs.
I'm not that far south in Indiana. I'm close to it. I'm close to it, but not quite that far south.
Truffle hogs.
Yeah, Mill's a lot closer to that part of Indiana than I am. So
Also,
yeah,
I don't. Yeah, those truffles are delicious. So
but I think that's the first time I've ever, other than like fish, I would say, I think that's the first time I've ever eaten something like not even farm to table, like nature to table before. So I guess
never
is
eaten
that
like berries.
huh?
You never eaten like blueberries or
No,
something like that?
no.
Truffle?
I mean,
No.
I would any of the berries around here that I see growing on things, I feel like were probably poisonous, and I would something very bad would happen if I tried to eat them.
We have blueberries in our backyard.
Well,
Oh.
we can't all be so fortunate, Betsy. I guess. I don't, Eric.
When we move,
Eric, do you have any
what?
nature? Sorry,
Oh
Betsy.
yeah.
Go ahead.
No,
No,
I
no,
was
you're
gonna say, unless you're talking about like going to an orchard or something and getting something there, I've never like just stumbled upon regular food in nature and been like, oh, I will partake.
Yeah, like
So
it's one of the times I feel like I'm not the most city stereotypical person, but in that instant I felt incredibly not country, which is just it's but I don't think I was aware of just how like city I am. Yeah, I'm one of them city folk.
pretty boy.
Yeah, exactly.
So you guys have never gone out and like eaten a honeysuckle?
No,
No.
I don't
You
even
know what
I wouldn't even know where to find one.
You know
Not
what
a
a
lot of
honeysuckle?
honeysuckles in downtown Chicago these
Yeah.
days.
Interestingly, honeysuckles, the plant itself The flower, or you can eat the whole flower and it's safe. Most people don't. They just take the little thing out and drink the nectar. But the fruit that it bears, the berries, are not consumable. They're not poisonous per se, but they will make your stomach, like, it's not good for you. You shouldn't do it. Not good for pets, though. Don't ever let a dog eat a honeysuckle. It's one of those
All right.
plants that,
All right,
in fact, poison.
you know what? Let's end right there on that note. Don't ever let a dog eat a honeysuckle. That is going to be that'll be the tagline at the bottom of SecondCityHockey.com. But I think that's going to do it for this episode of Musings on Madison here on the Second City Hockey Podcast Network. Thanks to everyone who was listening live on YouTube or at the website SecondCityHockey.com. We appreciate it. This episode will be up as a podcast on Wednesday while we're all still getting over our disappointment that the Blackhawks didn't win 2 draft lotteries in a row, but better luck next time, I suppose. And we'll be back with some more episodes between now and the draft. Not exactly sure when they're going to drop, but they'll drop at some point as schedules allow us to get together and talk about some more Blackhawk stuff. If anything interesting happens with the team, we'll certainly get together and talk about that. But keep an eye on the website as we're going to be diving more into our season recap articles. We had one go up Monday. We got some Betsy's working on some Ice Hogs prospect stuff as a wrap up from their season. Got a few more sections to touch up on, so plenty of content coming your way at SecondCityHockey.com between now and the draft, and then we'll certainly have more for the weeks after the draft when free agency goes crazy for a week, and then we'll probably all just go away for a month in the summer like everyone in the NHL seems to do. But we'll have plenty of more content before all of that happens, so keep an eye on the website and around these parts for the next edition of Musings on Madison. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.